All right, hey folks, welcome back to the channel. Eric the Old Jarhead here, and you're watching the Old Jarhead Sawdust Roadshow. We are in Prescott, Washington, finishing up the job with these last couple of big, gnarly, holy, rotten, dry, ancient black locust logs. You know, you really got to ask yourself, is it worth milling hollowed out, rotten logs that are rock hard, super dry? They're done. They're checked badly. You can see the checks in the end of the log. Is it worth it? Would you put this log on your sawmill? Drop a comment down below and let me know what you think. If it's worth it. You notice the customer, Patrick, he just stuck his hand inside the center of this log, and then what do? I start digging out what had to have been a mouse house or something in there. Folks, I've milled up some crazy things, but we're about to find out if there's any rats or mice in the middle of this log. Rats? Seriously? Mice? If you're afraid of rodents or snakes, well, you probably don't want to mill one of these. But no, I'm not going to lead you on. Nothing came out of this log, at least nothing that I noticed anyway. But you do have to ask yourself, is it worth milling up something that looks like this? I mean, look at that log. We're not talking a nice, solid, unchecked, fresh green piece of black locust here, right? We're talking about a dry, dead standing old piece of black locust. Well, folks, maybe, just maybe, sometimes you don't pass on those. Sometimes it's actually worth finding out what's inside. Now, I'm going to tell you up front right now, if you're waiting for me to pour water over it and show you the patterns at the end, well, we're not going to do that. Honestly, the figure in this log was okay. It wasn't something spectacular. I'm not going to lead you on and tell you that this had the best figure in the world. Because it didn't. It just didn't. However, it actually did produce usable lumber. And I think maybe that's the point here that I'd like to make, which is that a lot of times people take old, dry, gnarly, ancient logs like this and they buck them up and throw them in the burn pile, or they stick them in the wood stove and they just burn them. However, if you've got the equipment to break these logs down, you may actually find that there's some good lumber in there. Now, is it worth paying somebody to mill it up? Well, that's really up to every customer. At my rate, a log that takes half an hour for me to mill up because it's this hard and dry, that's going to cost you approximately $50 plus or minus, depending on how long it actually takes and how long we're into it, right? Because a milling job isn't something that you could say, yeah, I charge X number per hour, but there's always setup and delivery type fees and broken bands and whatever. So you kind of have to amortize things out over the entire period that you're milling. But if you can take a log like this on a sawmill and break it down fairly quickly, you may actually get some decent lumber out of it. So if it's me personally, and somebody's not paying me to do it, I would mill it. I actually would. And you'll notice that we got some boards out of it. And now, well, what are we going to do? We're going to bust it apart. Notice you have two gutters here, really. However, Patrick has a decent sized bandsaw already. So what he's going to do is he's going to cut those gutters out. He's going to whittle that down on his bandsaw to get a piece of wood that he can use himself. And it's worth it to him. And I think one of the things that we as sawyers probably should try to remember is that it's not always about the money. A lot of times, especially on jobs like this, it's actually more about the logs themselves. In this case, all these logs came from that homestead that you can see past the mill. that house was built in the late 1800s, and this homestead was a pretty good sized homestead. Still is, actually, but it was a big one for those days, way back in the 1800s. And these logs came from then. And as you're restoring this beautiful old house, if you're able to say at the end of it all, look at this railing or this flooring or the baseboard or the trim or whatever, this came from the very trees that were planted around the time this house was built. Well, that's pretty cool. That's kind of priceless. And so sometimes I think we have to remember that even though, as you could see with these logs, they don't look like they have a lot of value in terms of, if you're trying to mill these up to sell the lumber, they're just not the optimum logs to do that with. But their value may be something entirely different that has nothing to do with money. It has to do with history and just the awesome story that's going to come out of these. And I really hope to get back to the homestead and get some video for you of some of the work that Patrick does. So Patrick, if you're watching, I'm sure you probably are, bear that in mind. I need to come out and visit and see how you're doing. I'd love to see how some of this wood turns out and what you do with it. I think that's really important. And look right there. Beautiful. It's actually beautiful solid wood right there. So you wouldn't think so. You'd think, nah, it can't be, right? But there you go. There's actually some decent solid wood in here. All right, while we get this done, I wanted to give a quick shout out to Joe Maine. Thank you, Joe. I appreciate it. He sent me a box of bands. They're just standard 7-degree wood miser bands. That's what I prefer to run. I run an 1.5 inches. And Joe actually is a great guy. He's been around this industry for a while. I happen to know some of the biggest production sawyers out there use Joe Maine's bands. Nathan over at Out of the Woods Sawmill uses them. Craig, the Kilted Sawyer, lots of guys use Joe's bands. He ships free to the continental U.S. He is a distributor for Wood Miser bands as well as his company's bands. And I tell you, Joe's a great guy. And I'll drop a number down below. You can give him a call if you like. And honestly, folks, the best thing to do is to text or call Joe. I can drop his website in there as well. It's really just best to get a hold of him on his cell phone, frankly. Joe's a great guy. And Joe, I appreciate the bands. I really do. I love my number 7s. And it's just awesome having somebody that's so fast when it comes to shipping. Because I'll tell you, when you ask Joe to send you some bands, they get there in a hurry, folks. And while I'm at it, I should remind you that down below, there's a link to my store. There's some cool merch there, folks. If you haven't checked them out, do me a favor, go down and check them out. Anytime somebody decides to get themselves a cup or a shirt or a sticker, it really helps the channel out. Honestly, I don't make much more than $2 or $3 a day running these videos. So it kind of helps when you buy some of my merch or something of that nature. Give me a super thanks or a super chat when I do my lives, which I will be doing more of in the future. But folks, it really helps out, helps the channel, keeps me motivated. So if you like the channel, you like this old Jarhead logo, check it out down below. And if you'd like to see something different in the merch, don't be shy, let me know. All right, let's get this log done. All right, well, we're not quite done here. We're just kind of repositioning this cant a little bit. And one of the things when you're working with a log like this is you may have to kind of, as I like to say, fiddle fart around with it a little bit. You saw earlier that I was trying to position it a certain way, and Patrick was kind of helping out and actually said, no, don't do it that way, do it this way. And it's just kind of one of those things where you're dealing with a kind of, well, sketchy piece of wood, folks. An old, dry, holy piece of wood. And you just kind of have to move them around a little bit and try to see, can I sneak out some 4-inch stuff or some 6-inch or whatever. And you might just have to kind of move it around. These logs, they take a little more time than if I were to just put up a Doug fir or ponderosa pine on the mill. That's just the way it goes. But that's okay, folks. That's how it is some days. You see, we got that one done. We actually got quite a bit of lumber out of it. And again, Patrick, I can't wait to see what you do with it. And folks, Patrick's got an Instagram site. He's not real active on it right now, so I keep prodding him, trying to get him to be active. I'm going to drop a link down below to his Instagram. Go over there, find him on Instagram, poke him a little bit. Let's see if we can get him to post some pictures of the work he's doing. Because I'm telling you, they've done some amazing work inside this old home. It's a beautiful home. It's really awesome. All right, listen, folks, it's time to get this one done. Get on with the next one. Stick around the channel. Lots more coming. I got a bunch of jobs coming up. It's going to be a fun year. Hey, and by the way, do me a favor. I'd love it if you like this video and subscribe. And boy, I'll tell you what would really help is if you shared this video out there on Facebook or Twitter or TikTok or wherever you can share videos. It really helps me out, helps the channel out. I could use all the help I can get, folks. Appreciate you being here. Y'all have a great day. The old Jarhead out. I'm gonna change this band out. I think it's gotten a little too hot too many times.
Yeah.
That was just so dry.
Yeah, we'll see what we end up getting out of it, There's some good material in there.
Yeah, there's a lot of checks.
Yeah.
But it looks like maybe you got something out of it.
No, and again, even if it's not going to be productive, there's plenty of other things that'll be good for.
Yeah.
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 So.